laughed out loud at the start of this week's episode of AEW Dynamite because Orange Cassidy was the first person to come to the ring, and usually ring announcer Justin Roberts says the whole as if he doesn't care, but this time, with all the gusto in the world, he went from wherever, as if wherever is the greatest place in the world, and if you win the Super Bowl, you want to go there like Disneyland. Which means I'm going there right now. Also, hello, my friends, and yes, indeed, welcome to Ups and Downs at AEW Dynamite, the only wrestling review show you need, because one, I shall watch wrestling so you don't have to, and two, I'm not going to grift. I shouldn't have said that. There goes everybody. But also, this was Fright Night Dynamite, which means it was Halloween, so I have my own costume too. I'm like a luchador, but my hood is up, mostly because that's all the tools I had at my disposal. Should we review a wrestling show? Yes, let's give the good bits an up and the bad bits a down. This is hurting my face, let's go. Our first match was super fun as well because Orange Cassidy was teamed with Darby Allin to take on the Death Riders. I'm a bit worried about Danny Garcia. He has picked the worst possible time to join the Riders of Death because they just keep going down and down and down. But saying that, they could be like the Judgment Day in WWE. I have a feeling we may have a big switcheroo in the Death Riders soon, and maybe that will allow Danny Garcia to get a little bit of a promotion. Either way, this was fought under Tornado Tag Team rules, so it was totally crazy. But I thought to myself, you know what, in terms of starting a wrestling show and making sure we can all plug in, thumbs up. Bryan Danielson was also super happy that everyone got to fight the whole time because he despises Wheeler Yuta so much, he was like, oh baby, now he can just get punched in the face over and over again. I very much do enjoy Bryan on commentary. He just basically spends all of his time putting everybody else over, but he never forgets the stories. A man after my own heart. Darby must have heard that too, because he then smacked Wheeler Yuta with a chair. And of course, later on, we did that really cool thing when the camera wasn't really focused on Allin, and he just came zooming in with the coffin drop. And then later, he hit another one on Wheeler Yuta. And, you know, I think that was meant to be a 1-2-ooh, and Danny Garcia broke up the count, but actually Wills had to kick out. Even the commentators were like, don't worry about it. But it doesn't happen, man. Mistakes happen. It's live professional wrestling. We also got a bunch of dives. I put at least 2 on the dive counter, and everybody was going through tables, like flipping Wheeler Yuta splash Orange Cassidy through one at one point. But again, the story ever since the last pay-per-view is the downfall of the Death Riders. They don't know what they're doing, mostly because their leader, Jon Moxley, has become a big old scaredy cat. So after Orange had taken out Daniel using another table, Wheeler Yuta got put in the sharpshooter. It's almost as if Darby Allin has adopted that as his new finish, and he did have to tap out, which meant the baby faces were going to win. But there was more to this later too, and it could rhyme with Rudd and Futz. Shouldn't have said that, it sounded terrible. But yeah, honestly, let's say you happened to sit down and watch this episode of Dynamite, and you felt a bit like, oh man, I'm so lethargic right now. This would have put you right in the mood, giving it an up. We then saw Hook arrive at the building when somebody in the background was dressed as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. And of course, if you've been watching AEW for a long old time, that made you feel warm and fuzzy in your tum-tum. And Hook was all ready because he is going to be in the #1 contender match later for the world title. And of course, he wants to go after Samoa Joe because, man, I used to be in your opportunity group, and then I found out you were lying. You also do have to give this a down. I like Hook. I don't understand some of the criticisms that do get thrown his way. Not everybody has to be the best wrestler ever. But how the flub can you justify him being in a #1 contender match? I mean, he basically hasn't done anything lately, apart from hang out with Eddie Kingston, which is cool. We all want to hang out with Eddie Kingston. Hopefully you take my point, giving it a mini down. The world still turns. Renee Paquette then found Don Callis as well, and he is having a family summit later. I was like, this is the worst family of all time. You're meant to do this on a Sunday at home, not drag your family full of its 42,769 members all the way to live TV. But this is when he saw the Young Bucks and he called them over. He is trying to add more people to his group because he was like, oh, hi, Matt and Nick, look what I can do for you. And to be fair, he did give them one hell of an entrance. He was doing the big hype job on the microphone, and they had their old music, and also there was no funny stuff. If I were to hazard a guess, I don't think they're going to join the Don Callis family, and actually this is the slow start with them teaming back up with Kenny Omega. It was always going to happen. Speaking of callbacks as well, when Matt and Nick were going to the ring, they too looked at the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and that match we did years and years ago is one of my favorites AEW has ever done because it is so funny. When we just got to the most insane tag team match, it was the Young Bucks taking on FTR, taking on Jet Speed, taking on the Jurassic Express, because of course they had all fought on Collision, so now it was trying to time determine who the #1 contender for the tag team titles would be. And this is how you know the AEW tag team scene is in a good place. I was like, you know what? Any of them can win, and I will be a happy panda. As for the match, just go and watch it. Listen, I understand this style isn't going to be for everyone, as I say every single week, but the timing, the talent, the craziness, the madness, the sheer, oh my gosh, what's going on? They are great performers. You also had nonsense because Jack Perry gave his knife to Bryan Danielson at the start, and Bryan was like, well, I'm going to need this because Stokely Hathaway has joined us on commentary. I'm going to put a 1 on the dive counter and just give you a little bit of a PSA. If somebody hands you a potential murder weapon, don't say, thank goodness I have this, because that guy may need a stabbing. We then just got arm drags, which doesn't sound that exciting, but they were going at 100 miles per hour. When Jack and Mike Bailey were doing flipping Hurricane Ranas, then Jet Speed were doing their thing, and Jurassic Express were doing their thing. When FTR and the Young Bucks were like, screw that, and they took them all down like it was some damn nursery rhyme. And even though they couldn't really go on at the weekend, here, they did form a little mini alliance for a small while. Then, of course, it all fell apart. You just have to watch wrestling from any era. If two heels get together, give it 10 minutes and they're gonna fall out. We also need to talk about this crazy suplex that Dax Harwood gave Kevin Knight into the pile of people that were on the outside. And I just hope that Kev is okay. When he landed, well, he was either selling or his leg got totally murked, and it did look a bit horrible. But this was off the top rope as well. Once again, you can like and hate whatever you want, but the sheer risk that some of these dudes take was pretty damn impressive. Luchasaurus soon got the hot tag and he ran wild, which should be going on because he was the biggest guy in the match, and he's a dinosaur for goodness sake, when Jack Perry was jumping off his back doing Canadian destroyers. That's when I was like, that'll do, pig. That'll do. Or that'll do, dino. That'll do. A flubbing weird thing to say. We definitely got at least 2 dives in this as well, because Jack Perry did one right after this to put a 2 on the counter. And clearly somebody had gone, do you know who's great? Kevin Knight and Jet Speed together. We should give Knight something. So not only did the Young Bucks hit with a bunch of moves, but they got the PTE trigger, and this Mother Hubbard kicked out. You could feel it in the building. People were surprised. Kevin Knight then went, rah! Because he was good to go. He even got the UFO splash, but very sadly, he forgot about FTR, who just teleported in. They hit the Shatter Machine, and they got the 1, 2, 3. And listen, I will take FTR versus Bandido, Brandido, Blabimbo for the tag team titles, because that will be great. But once again, nobody came out of this feeling like a loser, because they just did so damn well. If you have 15 minutes today, you should watch it. Up. We then got a quick clip for the Hangman and a Page promo from Collision where he dropped the Dark Knight line of Samoa Joe, you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself to become the villain. And he finishes by saying, I'm going to ruin your life. So I had this vision of Samoa Joe doing his taxes and going, this tax return is wrong. And somewhere, Hangman and Page is going, ha ha ha, I told you. Don Callis and his flippin' family then came to the ring, and they actually had tables set up with placards. This is the most boring family of all time. Imagine you had to do that every year. And also, they started to explain to us what the Don Callis family was. Like Rocky Romero stood up and he said, I will tell you, we are the best faction ever. Then Josh Alexander went and he made a very nice video, so he put the work in. When Carl Fletcher had to explain the why, it's like, listen, you Australian, don't steal my gimmick. I didn't say that. I like Carl Fletcher. I think he's very good. But this felt a little bit ridiculous. But I suppose it was going to tie in because everyone kept saying, oh, it's a shame that Takeshita isn't here because he's had travel issues. And Okada was smiling like the Cheshire Cat when, surprise, surprise, who came out from the back saying, there ain't no travel issues with me. If you're not saying Takeshita, you haven't been paying attention. And he went right for Okada and Don Callis calmed him down. He's like, listen, Takeshita, IWGP champion, we all love you and on the ashes of Kenny Omega, which is an insane thing to say. We built this family, but don't forget, you were the first one in, but that doesn't mean you can't be the last one out. My hand went up. I was like, Don, you mean first one out? If he's the last one out, it means he's kicked you out first. But the whole point was Don Callis was threatening him. He told him to make up with Okada. And when Takeshita went to shake his hand, Okada just flipped him off. Don't care what anyone says, it's the feud of the year. Callis quite clearly doesn't watch wrestling either because he was like, okay, fine. If this isn't going to work from a respect angle, you two can team up with each other on Collision and I'm sure that nothing will go wrong. And I was like, yeah, Don. I mean, there's no historical equivalence to that. This was just so damn good though because it's effortlessly simple and everybody knows where it is going to go, but that's fine because it means you can start anticipating it. Like, AEW probably does need a top babyface right now, or a new brand new top babyface, and everybody is so ready to cheer Takeshita because 1, he's totally brilliant, and 2, he is the IWGP champion. I still think the AEW fan base sees that belt as massively important, as they should do, so I am going to give it an up. You can still draw it out for a few more weeks if you should want, but the teasing is really good. Although, yeah, if you ever get an invite for any kind of family occasion with the Don Callis family, you say no, otherwise up. Renee Paquette was there with Kris Statlander, and Kris understands that Mercedes Moné is super unhappy about what happened last week, but given that she is going to be fighting on Collision, do you know who's going to be front and center? It's going to be Kris Statlander. Thankfully, she then said, oh, I do believe we're both in the building tonight, so I'll see you later. At one stage, I thought that was going to be it. She's women's champion, man. Always do more. We then got a rematch from last week too, and it was Jon Moxley versus Kyle O'Reilly. This is another one. It is just tying into the downfall of Jon Moxley, who now, I don't even know if he has a gammy leg. What he does have, if anybody touches that region of his body, he totally freaks out and he can't handle it. It also means we got that great conglomeration video, and my gosh, that makes me feel good in my tootsie toes. Then once again, they just went to war. They had this crazy battle, and yeah, it ties into what I just said. Every time Kyle O'Reilly was able to pick that ankle, Jon Moxley was like, no, no. And essentially, he kept dropping Kyle on his head. I think he hit him with at least 2 pile drivers. At 1.2, O'Reilly stopped on the ankle and he hit the boom to get the 1-2-ooh. So let's just take a moment to shout out Adam Cole. We haven't talked about him much since he had that horrible news at Allin. I just hope he's doing okay, because that dude rules. Kyle O'Reilly had a dive later as well, and that was important too, but put a 1 on the dive counter. Because they were on the outside, they were using barricade and throwing each other into the ring post, and using the ring apron, which is the hardest part of the ring. You could tell something was cooking here. You could smell it in the air, especially because Marina Shafir kept getting involved, or at least looking at Kyle O'Reilly. When referee Aubrey Edwards was like, listen, you idiots, I am going to count you out. Look, 1, 2. But because they were fighting, and because Kyle O'Reilly had applied a submission, they weren't paying attention. Once again, bless Bryan Danielson. 5 minutes before this, he had said, you know what, even if you do get a submission on the outside and somebody taps out, you would still wear that as a sense of pride. The man is brilliant. Of course, they weren't too busy with this, so they did get counted out. And this is exactly why you don't want to do non-finishes all the time. But the crowd did boo this, because they wanted to see a 1-2-3 or a tap-out victory, and that rhymes, so it must be true. But it actually felt like they hated each other so much, and Jon Moxley has become such a feared Fred, they didn't know what to do. Tony Cassidy felt the same, so of course he attacked straight away when Roderick Strong was here, because he's friends with Carl, and all of a sudden you had all the Death Riders, and you had all the conglomeration, mostly so the good guys could pass the mic around and said, you know what we should do? And they gave it to Orange Cassidy. He was like, oh, I can't be bothered with this, but fine. Blood and guts. We also made sure that Orange Cassidy and Moxie tussled before that. Well, they had a big old shoving match. So now, yes, we have put this in the books, we have cemented it. And given who is involved, especially that the Death Riders are led by Jon Moxley, and Darby Allin was out here too, well, set your phases to terrified, because this bag, blood and guts, could be absolutely disgusting. But I am going to give it an up. We're already promoting things that are coming down the way, and AEW has been building this for a while. That's all you can ever ask for. Also, Jon Moxley and Kyle O'Reilly, they're embroiled in a feud that has come out of nowhere, but they actually have very good chemistry. Go teach sides. When we absolutely had the best camera cut of wrestling in 2025, because we went to the back, and Mercedes Moné was beating the crap out of Kris Statlander as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man looked on. I don't care. I need this in my life. Thank Flubbins that AEW exists. Mercedes then dragged Kris to the ring, but because she is the babyface, she started to fight back when it was Athena who zoomed in from nowhere, because of course she's been doing minion training with Mercedes Moné because they're going to enter the tag team tournament. Finally, Willow Nightingale and Harley Cameron came out because they have a friend in Kris Statlander, though of course Willow and Kris also have somewhat of a rocky past. This is turning into a bit of a soap opera. What I do like, though, is that the tag teams we just talked about, Mercedes, Athena, Willow, and Harley, are all fighting off in the tournament, but you also do have the match between Mercedes and Kris. So what AEW did here is they took all of it, they threw it into one nice, neat little package, and said, would you like it to be delivered like McDonald's? You got it. Also want to give one last shout out to the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, because whoever that was did absolutely nothing. It must have been useless wrestling security, but I am going to give it an up. Again, you're not going to be talking about this in 10 years' time. But as a way to pivot into the next thing, it's very well thought out. We then also got this Bandido video when essentially he was walking around saying, listen, not only am I facing Masquerada next week, but look how great my family is. If you didn't love him before, surely you watched and just went, you know what? he could be the best babyface of all time. No, I'm exaggerating, of course, and actually we got sad news after this, but then we learned Penelope Ford had been injured on Collision, and she's probably not going to be able to compete in Blood and Guts or the Women's Tag Team Tournament, and of all the people, that is so unfair. Penelope Ford in 2025 has been such a workhorse, she's been here, there, and everywhere, so all the best to her. Hope she can get back to it soon. Bravo all around for what came next though, because we did have our first round match in the Women's Tag Team Tournament, and as set up last week, it was Jamie Hayter and Queen Aminata taking on Julia Hart and Sky Blue. Now they're the Triangle of Madness, there's only two of them here, so they're the Line of Doom or something like that. But because I'm a massive nerd, I was like, okay, well the babyfaces are going to win, especially given they call the shot, but no! It was the heels that went over, and that's exactly what you want to do in a tournament, because now for the rest of the brackets, I'll be like, well, I don't know, man, maybe we're going to do a surprise. Sky Blue made me laugh out loud as well, because she tagged and got murked instantly, and their fair play to Jamie and the Queen, they were doing like quick tags and using tag team prowess. They looked pretty damn good. And eventually the tag captain kind of went off and they all started to fight. Julia Hart made sure that she used that to walk the ropes because she is spooky and walking the ropes is spooky wooky. We were taught that when they were kids. When we got sort of like a double super kick from Julia Hart and Sky Blue, so the Queen and Jamie came back with double lariats and everybody was down Humpty Dumpty. Now there was going to be some shenanigans here to put a one on the dick board. Yes, the AEW cameras missed this. But I'm going to sound like a bit of a defender, but I do think this at the same time. When you don't actually see some outside interference, it does make it feel more real, because if wrestling was on the up and up, well, you wouldn't know this was going to happen to begin with. The whole point, it was a sneak attack. But when Jamie Hayter was trying to kick some ass on the outside and she was doing well, Tekla appeared from underneath the ring. She speared her, and I thought this was such a creative finish, especially because they do have that group, because then Julia and Sky were like, well, now look, we can do the 2-on-1 attack. Jamie Hayter is not going to be able to save the Queen because she is dead. They hit that spinny slam suplex thingamajig they do. They got the 1, 2, 3, and then Tekla got in the ring. Like, Tekla, what are you doing? You're meant to be hidden. It also, of course, ties into the Blood and Guts match they've been teasing as well. So I am giving this an up. Once again, it just goes to show, not all booking needs to be really complicated. This made sense. It was not 2 + 2 = potato. And I'm actually involved in this women's tag team tournament. I think it could be a massive plus. The joy then kept on coming too, although we weren't going to know it until the end, because Tony Schiavone, dressed as the Phantom of the Opera, which I believe he did once in WCW, was interviewing Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford, and yeah, Penelope was there with her arm in a sling. She's going to be out for a while, so Megan Bayne's going to have to do something else. This is when Marina Shafir walked in and was like, I'll be your tag team partner, and Jon Moxley was like Santa Claus had just given him, I don't know, some blood for Christmas. He was so damn excited about this. And look, Megan and Marina did do the fist bump, so now I assume they have to win the tournament. I mean, they won't, but we're going to have to come up with something good about why they don't. Our main event was next, and it was a #1 contender match for the world title, and it was Samoa Joe taking on Hook, taking on Bobby Lashley, taking on Ricochet. This was absolutely fantastic. Like, Bobby Lashley absolutely should be in this scene more, especially because he rarely ever loses, if at all. Samoa Joe is just the best. I'm a big fan of Hook, even though we've addressed why it didn't really work. And this Ricochet, man, there's this stupid corner of the internet that acts like he's not a generational talent. He was so damn good in this. We do not put enough respect on his bald name. Of course, Hook went after Samoa Joe as well because he felt betrayed, but he also got into it with Bobby Lashley, who just punched him right in the face. But this was building towards the end of the match when Hook was like, I'm going to use my MP and trigger my special move. He hit this suplex on Samoa Joe, who saw it like he was dead. That's just some good old-fashioned wrestling. We also had Hook kick out of the Ricochet shooting star press, which Ricochet sold like he had just lost his wallet. And also, he was just flipping and flying and did at least 2 dives before this and put a do on the dive counter. But honestly, this is another one. If you do have a few minutes today, just go and watch it and keep your eye on Ricky. The man is very, very good. I mean, they all are. We eventually got to the point where it's like, you hit your finisher, then I'll stop you with my finisher, then our Nan will come in, and she'll hit a bunch of finishes too. When I think Ricochet panicked, because he got a chair, he just smacked Bobby Lashley on the back, who was chilling out on the ring apron about to kill Hook. He was so damn mad that he chased Ricochet away. I was like, I tell you, I'm going to be dead in the ground, and the Hurt Syndicate and the Demand are still going to be feuding. Here, though, I thought it worked. I think Tony got confused by this as well, because that's when Samoa Joe snuck in. He did apply the Coquina clutch, and we made sure that Bobby Lashley ran back to the ring, but he wasn't able to make it. Now, as it turned out, Hook had got his 8 hours, so instead he did tap out, and the camera on Bobby's face was so funny. It was like a kid at Christmas who really wanted a PS5, and all he got was a stupid Coleco. I tell you, they'll rust up on you. My heart just filled up with glee after this stuff, because Powerhouse Hobbs and Shibata came out to celebrate with their glorious leader. And yes, Tony Schiavone was here back in his costume and saying, oh, Samoa Joe, you've done it. How about you sign this contract to make it official at the next pay-per-view? And Samoa Joe was going to do this when Tony invited out the AEW Fright Night crew, which was a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and there was a chicken and a cow and some other things. And the ops beat the hell out of them. Straight away, I was like, this is brilliant. We're just beating up mascots. But of course, Samoa Joe remembered the past, and he took the hood of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, thinking it was Hangman, when it wasn't. He punched this guy right in the face. I'm sorry, this was the segment of the year. Samoa Joe was even happy to make an ass of himself too, because he was like, ha ha ha, Hangman. Goes to show you're no longer that inventive, you're no longer the master of disguise. And the whole time, Tony Schiavone kept talking, which is why this bit was so smart, because it meant he could bail, so we could hear his voice. But the person that got back into the ring was not Tony Schiavone, and it was Hangman Adam Page, dressed up like this guy. He smashed a bottle over Samoa Joe's head, he whooped Powerhouse Hobbs and Shibata by kicking him in the balls, and dressed as Tony Schiavone, he hit a buckshot lariat. So nobody can ever take that away from me. Surely it also means that Tony Schiavone was in on the deal. How else would they been able to coordinate like this? But don't you walk into my house and tell me Goofy Wrestling for Life can't work in a main event angle. Everybody sold this like a big deal, and therefore it was a big deal. And it made me so damn happy. The last time I checked, that's the whole reason why we watch pro wrestling to begin with. It also goes to show that Hangman Adam Page was like, well, it is the Halloween episode, and I've done this before, so why don't I do it again? It was creative, and it was inventive, and of course, it takes this idea that Samoa Joe is getting another shot, just adds a bit of sauce back into the burger. I couldn't give it a bigger up if I tried. That's not true. We have ups for those, but it's not going to get one of them. But I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was terrific. And once again, made me feel warm and fuzzy in my tum-tum. Which brought us to the end of AEW Dynamite, and I thought this was a terrific episode because, again, it just felt like we wanted to lean into the fact that wrestling can be fun. This is why it's always going to be important that we do have two major companies. So I am going to give it an up, and now, of course, you can disagree with me in the comments below. When you are down there, please do like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Click the video on the screen, which is ups and downs from Monday Night Raw, to get all my takes on pro wrestling. Otherwise, my friends, have a terrific Halloween, or whatever you want to do. I will see you soon.